It's The Big Show, and on The Big Show we like to speak to legends. We've got Bobby Elliot for you from the Hollies, who is going on tour. They've got a new album out and he's still rocking and rolling after 500 years. How are you?
Hey, and it don't seem a day too long. Hi, Alex.
How you doing? I love playing your records still on the radio.
Thanks, mate.
They're contemporary and they're well written. That's the key, isn't it? They've got to be good songs.
Well, yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. We try and choose the goodies, whether we've written them or not. I mean, all through the 60s we wrote a lot of our own, but then at times we'd use other people's, like You Ain't Heavy or The Air That I Breathe, written by outside writers, and we're still writing.
Is it fun being you? Because you go on tour now and you're still rocking and rolling and people are still paying to see you. There aren't many left like that, are there?
You mentioned the word fun, and that is the operative word, because we do have fun. We've got a great band, great guys. Even the crew are like family, and once it ceases to be fun, we might not want to do it anymore. It's always been fun, and it's a treat. It's a privilege.
I think there's a typo here. I apologise. My producer seemed to have made a mistake. They've said 45 years in show business. I think it's 15, isn't it?
15?
Well, not 45. It can't be 45 years.
It could be longer than that, actually. Oh, dear,
do you ever get bored? Because, these songs are great, but when you sing them for 45 years, does your heart sink?
Well, there's so many of them. We sort of recycle them and rejig them. And we've probably had over 30 hits in this country, so there's plenty to go out, plus the new stuff and, the album stuff and what people shout out and request and things. So you've got over 2 hours of live show. We do an hour on stage, have an intermission, then do about an hour and 10 minutes. So it's just us. It's just Hollies and more Hollies.
Let's go back to the beginning and talk about what it was like to be a star 45 years ago.
Yeah.
Was it sexy being in the Hollies?
Sexy, yeah, that's a good word. There was that, and there was that, and it was an unusual time, because you've got to realise it was early 60s. You come out of that austere post-war era where there was rationing and people didn't have much money, and all of a sudden we found a way of creating our own music, along with the Beatles and people like that, and eventually towards the middle of the 60s we sort of exported it back to America. We'd grown up. Simulating or absorbing American R&B and pop music, and then it got to about 1964, 65, and we're actually sending music back to the States. It got so serious for the Americans that they called it the British invasion. It was all one-way traffic, whereas before it had been all there, people like Count Basie and Ella Fitzgerald coming this way. Now we have the rock invasion going the other way, and they were they were a bit sort of like miffed by it all. So that was quite something. But I think growing up as kids, we were stimulated, and we all liked, from Presley to Eddie Crocker and to jazz to whatever. It was American music, and that sort of formed our basis. And then we sort of, like, as I said, exported it back to the States in a different way. When
did you know you'd made it? When was the moment when you realised, I'm not bad at this?
I think doing the Albert Hall very early on. We were at the Albert Hall. The BBC used to have broadcasts from the Albert Hall, live broadcasts, and to be on stage there, lots of other artists, or maybe the Beatles were on as well, and people like Del Shannon and lots of other drummers who were good players, and I realised I'd found my level. I gave you that confidence. Then, yes, I think I realised that we had arrived, because you get people coming up and patting you on the back and things, and that was that made you feel really great.
In terms of the people that you've performed with and for, what are the lasting memories?
I think the first trip to the States, playing the Paramount Theatre in New York City, where we did 5 shows a day, not just us, but Little Richard and the King Curtis Orchestra, Shirley Ellis, it goes on. I think we were only the only white act on there. And in those days, this was an Easter show that ran for a week, and it started at 9 in the morning with a movie, and then you had a rock show, and then you had a movie, and it went like that right through the day for the whole Easter period. And each act was only allowed to do 2 songs, but to work with those guys, and then afterwards go down Greenwich Village and see Miles Davis and Charlie Mingus, who were my idols, these jazz guys, it was just a dream come true.
How would you describe yourself in terms of a performer? Are you more musicians than showmen? Because it really was about the music, wasn't it, in those days?
Yeah, but I think the show thing comes through. you don't know you're doing it. I mean, I'm fairly flamboyant drummer. You know, the cymbals are always high up. I sit high up, and I think it started out with wanting to, being sat at the back. I wanted to be seen, so I sat high up when I was a kid. But it moves from there. You develop a style, and once you've developed a style, you know that you're entered. Part of the playing, you take the playing for granted, and then you want to communicate it. So. Whether you're a drummer, a guitar player, or a front man, and it's the tools of the trade, and you want to hone your craft, and you want to be as good as you can be.
So what makes you go from just being an okay drummer to an amazing one then? Because it's a funny thing, it just looks like a load of things in front of you. You got a stick and you whack them, and you're just keeping everything going.
We have 2 sticks nowadays.
I only play with one, that's where I'm going wrong, isn't it?
Get your other stick, and you can use your feet as well. And can you peel a banana sideways? No. There is practice, really, but I'm a pretty lazy guy. I don't practice as much as I should. Dare I use the word, there's a gift comes. I think you're born with something, whether you're a painter or whatever, and a brain surgeon, a drummer. It just I think I had this natural ability. I was a bit of a. I don't want to sound big-headed, but I just had something in there that I had to play drums, and it gave me a head start, and in a way, and it just carries me through. It's like the old riding the bike job, I'm a lazy guy, but I go on stage and it works.
And physically, how fit do you have to be? Because to me, the drummer's the hardest working physically of anybody else in the band.
Yeah, you've got to be pretty fit. It's a physical thing and a mental thing. You're carrying the whole thing. You are the powerhouse. You are the engine room. You are driving that band, and you're counting the songs in and this, that, the other. You are, it all runs to you. You are the timetable in a way. And fitness. Comes into it in a big way. I mean, some of the new guys, the young guys, are like athletes. They practice all the time and eat the proper food and this. Quite right. And fitness is very important. Yeah.
And in terms of keeping everything going, I mean, I was just at the Michael Bublé concert the other day, and it was just brilliant. And hearing those new PA systems with the drums is really a thrill, because they heighten the sound, and the beat can literally move your heart, can't it, when you're sat in one of those auditoriums these days? Is that good for you?
It makes it easier for me because, everything is mic'd up now. There are lots of mics on each individual cymbal and percussion thing, any effects you've got there. And it does make it easy because you know that stuff is being heard out there. But there is light and shade. I mean, I don't want to sort of like blast people's eardrums. If you've got a good front of house sound engineer, he will make it all sound good, but also not sort of punish people. It will be a joy to hear those chimes and different tones and intonations from the drums. So it's all a lot different from those early days where the drums weren't mic'd up at all, and I used to tune my drums to get them, the most volume out of them as possible. I used a wooden bass. The beater on the bass drum in the early days with me wasn't made out of felt, it was made out of solid wood, so it really whacked through. So it's all changed, and technology, like early days you recorded on 1/4-inch tape, and there was no overdubs. I mean, Stain, just one look, it was recorded on a 1/4-inch piece of tape. Yeah. And if you did something wrong, they'd edit. The fella would come in with a razor blade and sort of splice it together. And then it went up to multi-tracks. It went 4-track, 8-track, 16, and now the sky's the limit, of course.
You were there in the heyday of show business and rock and roll, of course. It's changed a lot since then. Certainly the business has. Are you glad that you started when you did and not now?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, because I understood it then. I mean, if I was starting now, I would presume that I'd come from a different generation and I would understand it. But then, as you mentioned the showbiz, and you mentioned show, which is right to a certain extent, because there was variety. When these bands were starting, like the Hollies and the Beatles, you go on these concerts where you go on a package tour, and you might have somebody like Jimmy Clitheroe topping the bill, and the Hollies closing the first half. I remember an early show we did at Scarborough, the Hollies closed the first half, and Jimmy Clitheroe, who was a little sort of small man comedian, topped the bill, and that showed the meeting of the variety, the end of variety and big bands, and the start of British rock and roll.
Are the kids getting involved with your music again? Because I mean, everything goes round. You go into fashion, and then you come out of fashion, and then you come back in again, don't you?
Yeah, I think you get bands that come along because they're curious and they want to know where the harmonies came from, and the Tony's guitar sounds with the 12 stringers and all the different things he used. And yeah, we did take on we have a lot of new faces there, and also we had a resurgent with He Ain't Heavy, even though it was back in the late 80s. The He Ain't Heavy was number one again, and that brought us a whole new fan base in. So we've got the people that grew up alongside us, but also we've got the younger people as well. It's joyous to see them all there. It's a lovely mix.
And what about the gropies for Bobby Elliot? Are there many around waiting for you at the stage door?
Oh yeah, the Zimmer frames and we look after those those girls. They've grown on gracefully. Yes.
I mean, you must have become friends with some of them. You must see them so often.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lady called Pam who lives in the Lake District. She used to stand outside our office in Stockport in 1963, and she would write to me, and she still turns up at gigs, and that is amazing. She was a schoolgirl then, and a lot of people have stayed close to us, and it's a joy. It is nice, but we like the new faces as well.
Let's talk about your new album before we go. Always good to get you on. It's called Now Then, Always. Or is it Now Then, Always? Which one?
No, it's Jimmy Savile. Now Then. It's Then, Now and Always.
Oh,
and
I see. Sorry, I beg your pardon.
Yeah, it's all new songs. Now Then, Now. Yeah, guys and girls.
A tremendous album, and it sounds so like you. And I know that could be perceived as an insult, but it's not. We want to make the Hollies sound like the Hollies, don't we? And when you do a new album, we look forward to your sound, which is unique.
It's probably that three-way harmony, It was based on, when we were kids. It was based on the Everly Brothers with Alan Clark and Graham, Graham Nash, who formed Crosby, Stills and Nash, and then Tony came along and added this lower bass harmony, lower harmony, and it made it sound more like a horn section. It's got that big spread with it, and that came along probably stay Just One Look time. Yeah.
What's the best song on the album then?
Well, I've got two on there myself, so I would say, I like Then, Now and Always, but there's one called One Touch, which we'll be doing on the tour, and the final song called She'd Kill For Me that I wrote.
Let's play that one. Thank you so much for coming on today. Bobby Elliot, always nice to get you on the programme from the Hollies, and you're on tour. Have you got a website we can plug for all your dates?
www.hollies.co.uk.
Very nice. Good to talk to you. And Bobby Elliot, the big man from the Hollies, keeping everything going. Because without you, they're stuffed, aren't they, really? Let's be honest. Good to talk to you. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Alex. Enjoyed it. Thanks, mate.